Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Planting the Seeds of Strength, Empowering Early Learners with Thrively. We are thrilled to have you here with us. My name is Jamie Jo Morgan, and I am a manager of customer success here at Thrively, and I'm your host for today's session. And I am joined by the remarkable Luis Salazar, who is a counselor at Sunkist Elementary and who has graciously agreed to join us today. Before we dive in, I would just like to briefly introduce Thrively and go over a few important details just to ensure a smooth and enjoyable webinar experience for everyone. So first and foremost, Thrively was founded on a core philosophy that every child has a genius and they deserve to thrive. So our saying is, what's strong with you, not what's wrong with you. And our purpose, our core mission at Thrively is to bring a paradigm shift in education through asset-based learning. At Thrively, we've created the industry's first strengths assessment to unlock the positive learning identities and strengths of every learner and to help increase their confidence and their self-esteem. We measure hope as a cognitive trait with our Hope Index, which helps develop agency and resilience. And lastly, we ensure emotional security with our well-being index. We do this by creating a strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful learning environment that impacts academic outcomes. When you've got children that are feeling and functioning well, then that's going to spread through all of the aspects of their education. So today's session will last approximately 30 minutes. We will explore how Luis is empowering his entire team with tools, resources, and a mindset to embrace strengths-based education and how that's transformative for student engagement and achievement. For those of you who are school-based educators hoping to pilot Thrively, I'm actually going to put a link in the chat for you. And you can actually introduce us to your principal and be able to get a chance for a pilot for Thrively at your campus. So I want to thank everyone again for joining us today. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I want to thank everyone again for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the webinar, and let's get started. So I want to start by getting settled in and taking a quick look at what we're going to be exploring together today. So first, we will talk about why early childhood is such a critical time to begin planting seeds of strengths, because this is when students are just beginning to form their identities, their sense of belonging, their belief in what they're capable of. We will show you how Thrively supports young learners in developing a strong sense of well-being, because when kids start to see themselves through strengths-based lenses, it changes how they show up, both emotionally and academically. And you'll leave with practical strategies that you can use right away, how to introduce strengths vocabulary in meaningful, age-appropriate ways, and how to help students internalize those words through classroom routines and through conversations. Finally, we'll look at ways to engage families in this journey, because we all know that that home-school connection is so powerful when it comes to building a positive learner identity. Luis, I know this is something you've seen firsthand with your students. Before we move on, is there anything you want to add about why this work matters, especially at that K-2 level?
Well, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for having me today. It's an honor, because I've been working with Thrively now for about 2 years, and I see the difference in the students. One of the many, many things I've learned in, counseling, psychology, therapy, whatever you want to call it, is we are just big kids. We're grown kids. And this is the foundation um, for the rest of our lives. I mean, what we learn now will dictate how we see ourselves, how we interact with others, and ultimately how we interact with the world. So we don't
Mhm.
have that foundation now. It's going to be pretty difficult as we get older. So very, very important to lay that foundation and lay those roads to success and lay those pathways to learning. And it even goes back to brain research. I mean, you take any child, 5 years old, and about 90% of the size of their brain is developed. So what does that tell us? That early beginnings, early childhood, this is the time to teach and get the most out of whatever we're being taught.
And this is why we've invited you to join us today. I want to go ahead and take this time to introduce ourselves. I'm Jamie Jo Morgan. I've been in education for 16, 17 years now. 8 of those years I did work as a gifted and talented instructional specialist. And I am raising two incredible daughters in North Texas with a very patient husband. And I'm a huge musical theater advocate, participant, and volunteer. Louise, I'd love you to introduce yourself.
Oh yes, so I clean up pretty well. There's a before and after photos, two of them there. So 13 years, school counselor. God, time flies by. Prior to that, yes, the screen is correct. Deputy Sheriff, Los Angeles County. I worked amongst all the fun stuff, like patrol and all those things. I did mental health for about 4 years. Who would have known that I would end up in this field? And the quote that I put was, because I've learned this through the years, is the child creates the adult. I've had the pleasure of working in this district now with students from 4 years old all the way to 18 years old. And even when I was working in my past life, past profession, I did see that whenever I would sit in counseling sessions or, people ask me anything or we had a conversation, whatever it was, it always seems like we always tied everything back to their childhood. And the therapist, the doctor, psychiatrist, psychologist would always start with, so tell me about your childhood. How did you grow up? Little did I know, with Thrively's help and a lot of other things, it would have become really obvious to me why early childhood interventions are so important and why teaching children at this age, it will affect the rest of their lives.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to take just a quick look at the community where you serve because it really helps us to ground this conversation in the real world and remind us that we are dealing with real children. When I was researching the demographics, one of the things that stood out to me immediately was over 88% of the Sunkist students qualified for free or reduced lunch. And across the district of Bassett, nearly 1 in 5 students receive special education services. So I'm impressed that Bassett also offers early childhood programs that reach children as young as 18 months, which means that your educators have this unique opportunity to start planting those seeds of identity and confidence really early. Is there anything quickly that you want to share about your community, your students, your families that you serve?
Oh, absolutely. So in our community, we have great, great teachers, great educators, all the way from the schools to district office. And when you see a figure like 80% fee reduced lunch, a lot of times what comes with that is socioeconomic money. It's always the thing. And a lot of times, in my experience working with these students now for 13 years, a lot of the students in my school are in transition, transition from home to home. A lot of times, homeless, doubled up, things like that. And that brings up special issues with that population. And a lot of times, we forget that our environment dictates who we become and what kind of needs we need to help people with. And, utilizing Thrively and looking at those numbers, um, this is the time to help these students. And
Absolutely.
because tools, they need the extra tools. Nobody's fault. It's just the way life happens to be.
Mhm.
And that's okay. We can't control what life brings us, but we can control what we do about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that actually brings us into our next slide, which is why start early. Let's talk about why it's so important to start this work early. So every child begins life with this natural curiosity, of this love of learning and a drive to understand the world around them. We see it in the way they ask those endless questions and they try new things. They light up when they discover something new. Um, but here's the truth, whether that love of learning grows or fades depends so much on the messages that they receive about who they are and what they're capable of. And so that's why helping young learners build a positive sense of self as learners is just absolutely foundational. If a child believes I'm good at figuring things out, or I'm kind and helpful, that identity becomes the lens through which they approach challenges, relationships, and their education. So, strengths based learning helps keep that spark alive. It tells our students, you already have something inside of you that matters, and let's build on that. Um, we've all seen the students that spark um, dims, and we don't want that spark to dim. We want to keep that spark alive. Um, and so I just think it's so important that we start early. Luis, in your experience, how have you seen strengths based work keep that natural love of learning alive in the students that you work with?
So I want to focus on number two, the big word positive. So what I've learned and what I've seen is whenever I help a child with anything, support, guidance, you name it. Throughout the years, if I help a child, tell a child, interact, and my message is structured in a negative way, such as, no, don't do that. You can't go there. Okay, I, as a child, understand that. But then what? You told me don't go there. So where do I go?
Mm-hmm.
What do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
Flip it around, change it backwards. I would like for you to come and stand right here.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. You gave me direction. And because you gave me direction, I can follow that.
Mm,
That gives me a sense of pride. My self-esteem rises because I was able to follow simple instructions.
mm-hmm.
So in a way, by structuring positive messages, we are setting up that child for success because it's a win-win situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And when you and I were speaking um, uh, last week, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about how identifying the strengths early has such a huge impact on these students because they carry that identity with them. Um, they don't develop that negative self talk that we see so often in our students. If we've got language early about I'm a creative person or I'm resilient, then we don't end up with as much of that negative talk and those dimmed sparks. Um,
Absolutely. And you
absolutely.
mentioned vocabulary, and I'm glad you brought that point up. There's something in counseling that says you need to name it to tame it, meaning I have to put my emotions, what I really don't understand, into words. Once I can read what I'm feeling, it's easier to deal with. So, a very good point you brought up.
Absolutely. And I know there's sometimes this feeling that our youngest learners are too early in their journey to start talking about strengths or to focus on building their identity as learners. They're just babies, right? But the truth is, those early years are absolutely critical. This is the time when their sense of self, their mindset, their emotional foundation, those are all being developed. And some might say, oh, they'll figure it out later. But we know that those habits, those beliefs shape their identity and their approach to learning. And that starts forming when they're young. What they believe about themselves in those early years has a direct impact to how they approach challenges, how they learn new things, how they grow through their academic journey. And then there's this misconception that soft skills, things like resilience, hope, social emotional learning, don't contribute to academic success. I know there's a huge push for academics, but research tells us that it, it is otherwise. Hope, for example, is a key predictor of both academic success and success in life. And Thrively focuses on those critical areas, helping students build a strong foundation for all the learning that comes after. So, Louise, I know this mindset shift has been a huge part of what you have experienced at Sunkist Elementary. How has Thrively been received at your school, or what changes have you seen in your students when it comes to developing their learner identity?
I'll give you one example. So one of my classrooms, first grade actually, in the beginning of the year, I would get called to the classroom pretty much every day. And it was with various students, not just one student.
Hmm.
And the big thing was behavior. Simple tasks, just as have a seat on your desk, pay attention, and listen. Okay, pretty simple. But it wasn't happening. So why isn't it happening? That's my where I come in. So what I did was I went into the Thrively system and I said, okay, first grade, what things can be implemented in their natural environment by the person who is with them most of the day,
Hmm.
who's going to help them put those things into place. So I just started adding lessons. And I said, well, let's try this lesson. What is your end goal? Well, I would like for them to have a seat and focus and pin. Oh, so you want them to focus on you. No problem. Let's talk about focusing. So I assigned a Thrively lesson. I went in with the teacher and I said, hey, look, this is how I would do it.
Hmm.
Doesn't mean I'm right or wrong, just my way of doing things. Find your strength. What are you good at?
Hmm.
And deliver this in a manner that you can do it.
Right.
I gotta be honest with you. I have not been called to that classroom. I
That's
cannot remember the last time I was called to that
amazing.
classroom.
That's amazing. And I know many adults reflect on their own experiences and they might say, "Well, I never had anyone focusing on my learner identity or my sense of self and I turned out just fine." Um, and while that might be true for some, we do know that when we invest in developing a positive identity early on, it does provide a much stronger foundation for success. Again, both emotionally and academically. It's giving our youngest learners the tools to thrive from the very beginning. And I think it's really important to be intentional. Being intentional is all about how we introduce and reinforce strengths. And that is so important, especially in those early years when we make a conscious effort to expose students to strengths and emotions. It helps them develop self awareness and a deeper understanding of who they are. Um, the best part of that is embedding strengths in their daily routines, whether it's through feedback or activities or classroom discussions. It creates a lasting impact. And one way we can do that is to point out strengths when we see them being used. Or, wow, I saw how you used your creativity today when you came up with that really fun idea on the playground. Um, and so, have you seen that intentionality around strengths with your students or your teachers?
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought the playground. So one of the things with students, children, young students, is there's something called positive strokes, meaning I did what I'm supposed to do. I lined up, hands to myself, looking forward. However, a lot of times when we do the things we're supposed to do, nobody says anything.
Mm,
Nobody notices it.
mm-hmm,
But I'm a child looking at my world.
mm-hmm,
And what do I see? I see the student, maybe the kid next to me, who didn't do that, who is pushing students,
mm-hmm,
who is not in line, get all the attention.
mm-hmm.
So how am I going to
Absolutely.
think of that? So wait a minute. So I need to do what he or she is doing to get attention
Right.
because nobody notices what I do.
Yep.
However, positive strokes,
Yep.
simple as I like the way you're in line. I
Mm-hmm.
like the way your hands and feet are to yourself and you're looking forward. You're such a great student.
Oh,
Watch,
absolutely. I
watch that
taught
big smile.
kindergarten.
Mhm. That will be reinforced in their head and they'll say, you know what? I like this. They
Mm-hmm.
get congratulated. And more than
Absolutely.
likely, they will do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I taught kindergarten, and that was one of the big things is pointing out,
Yeah.
being intentional. So I want to talk about building strengths vocabulary because that's such a key part of helping the young learners understand themselves. So think about it. If we don't give them the right words to talk about their strengths, then how can they express what makes them special? So it can be really tough for them to recognize and talk about their own uniqueness without words in their toolkit. So, where do we start? Well, it's great to just keep it simple. With Thrively, we like to say introduce just one or two new strengths words each week. The strengths vocabulary cards are on the dashboard. I'm going to link them here also, and they'll be sent in the resources afterwards. But you can reinforce these words by using them in stories, in visuals, in class discussions. And it's a fun way to build their vocabulary while making those words feel real and meaningful. And so, all of this information is in a guidance document that I'll link in the chat um, here in just a little bit. Um, and then again, we'll send it after our webinar. So, Luis, I know you've had some experience with the vocabulary. How do you see the strengths vocabulary being introduced or reinforced in your school? And what are some of the ways that you help students connect those words to their everyday experiences?
I noticed at the bottom of your screen, you put the quote, you showed perseverance when you kept trying to zip your coat. I love that. Here's why. If we help children focus on the process, being intentional, as you said before, on paying attention, working hard. When you get something wrong, it's not because you got it wrong. It's because you didn't know all of the information. But you're such a hard worker. So
Mm,
you're going to figure it out because you have those skills already to do it. This strength-based vocabulary helps with self-regulation. Because if I can teach a child that he has that inner strength, meaning, you work hard, you focus, you pay attention, the results will really naturally take care of themselves. If you just focus on the process, the results happen.
absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. So I want to just look at just sample strengths for young learners because building that strengths vocabulary is really essential. It helps them to understand and talk about who they are by introducing, again, just one or two strengths words each week and reinforcing them through stories, visuals, discussions. We can make that fun and engaging. We talked about the you showed perseverance when you tried to zip up your coat. Here's just a couple of examples. Curious, you love to ask questions and explore new things. kind, you help your friends, you take care of others, or creative, you think of new ideas, new ways to solve problems. And so it's just really important to bring the strengths to life through visuals, puppets, stories, to take that abstract and to make it feel real or familiar. Um, and so after you've laid the foundation with the vocabulary and you're ready to introduce the strengths assessment, we do have a K through 2 program guide that can help walk you through all of the steps along with providing some helpful tips. Again, I'll link it here and then we'll send it after. But for example, before starting the assessment, we'll tell students this is not a test. There is no right or wrong answers. It's just a fun way to learn more about what makes you special, especially after all the great work they've done building their strengths vocabulary. And so then we also encourage students to be honest with their answers because you want your strengths assessment to reflect your strengths. So choosing answers that feel the most like them. And then for families supporting at home, we do suggest creating just a fun, relaxed environment and reminding kids that there's no pressure to just be yourself. So I can go ahead and share the link to the K through 2 strengths guidance document in the chat. It's an essential resource for educators that helps introduce and reinforce that strengths vocabulary, and it's packed with great ideas and strategies and activities. Throughout this, I'll be sharing additional resources in the chat, and after the session, they'll be sent to all of the registered attendees. We do also want you to know we're always listening to educators and their feedback. So we are in the process of updating our existing program guides to make them even better. So you'll be receiving the existing guide along with the other resources after today's session. But do keep an eye out because we'll have some new and exciting resources in the upcoming school year, including updated documents and videos. And that's going to make it even easier to support your students. So we're really excited to continue supporting you in your work with young learners. Are the strengths deck of cards and the strengths assessment available in Spanish? I will check on that. I know we do have quite a few things that are available in Spanish, so I'll have to look and see about the cards. The strengths assessment is definitely available in Spanish, but I'll have to check on the deck of cards. Awesome, yeah, and I'll let you know. So now that we've talked about the guidance resources that you'll receive, I do want to talk about how Thrively can be used in your day-to-day with your students. One of the best parts of Thrively is that it doesn't require big, elaborate lessons. You can introduce strengths through simple things like stories, classroom roles, or play-based activities. Just a few minutes at a time can make a big difference, especially when we keep things visual and we use kid-friendly language. We always focus on growth. It's not about being perfect. It's about recognizing progress and celebrating effort. Louise, can you share how you use Thrively to spark conversation and exploration in your classroom?
Oh, absolutely. Even just going into the videos, from kinder all the way to fifth, the message is the same. How do I get students to talk about themselves? Um, you ask a student normally, so how things going? I don't know. How you feeling? I don't know. Thrively brings the lessons where that interaction can take place. So that it actually calms the student down because the way the lessons are structured, they're in a simple manner, they're intentional, they're asking positive questions. It's not judgmental in any way.
Mhm.
The student feels comfortable engaging and they're age appropriate. So the kinder lesson may be on focusing, Well, I'm going to talk to a kinder to focus in a different way than I would a fifth grader,
Mhm.
but my goal is the same. I want both students to focus at their development where they are. And
Mhm.
that's what I like about Thrively, that it provides students directions, what to do. And it's almost subconscious when you think about it. We all want this. I mean, all students want structure, predictable outcomes, benefits, consequences, and it gives them control of their own behavior. And when a child starts to learn about themselves, they feel in control, they feel
Mhm.
empowered, and they're just calmer. And I see it around campus. I
Mhm.
see it when they play. I see it when they are in lunch line. I see it in the classroom. I see when they participate. And it's simple. It really is that simple.
That's absolutely. I've seen for myself the difference that just using that positive language can make. And Dr. Smith has shared that you can translate our resources in up to 20 languages with the use of AI tools and resources. So um, that's awesome. So we can absolutely translate our resources in up to 20 languages. And so I do want to, I know we're running out of time, so I'm going to just really quickly do the last couple of things here. I want to talk about one of the most important parts of building a strong learner identity, and that is partnering with families. Um, when you do the strengths assessment in K through 2, the families are a huge part of that. And we share the same strengths and language at school and at home, and that helps students feel seen and supported in every part of their life. You can use newsletters, parent teacher conferences, even quick videos to show families how to talk to their child about what makes them unique. We also suggest sending home just simple activities or conversation starters. Just a small nudge can lead to really powerful, really meaningful moments at home. Louise, how have you brought families into the conversation around strengths at Sunkist?
So during our coffee with the principal, I've started doing parenting classes. And when I introduce topics, things like that, I always come just like Thrively from positive, from what works, from giving them directions with guidance. And what I've noticed is whenever I tie home life and school life, I've realized home is their first family.
Mm-hmm.
We as educators have become their second home, their second family. And it's a partnership and it's reinforced at home. So what the child sees is, so my first family home is saying one thing. My second family is saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
What? It must be true.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's such a good point is when you have both of the families speaking the same language, that language of strengths, the vocabulary of their strengths, their unique learner identity. Um, it's huge, and it can really, we talked about keeping that spark in their eyes, and that can really help support that, especially when you have kindergarten, first grade, typically second grade. Our report cards are wildly different than once we get into the upper grades. When you think about upper grades, what goes home? Well, behavior and letter number grades. Um, and not every kid has positive behavior and positive grades. But one of the things that Thrively can do is give students that positive language, their strengths, so that they know um, that again, every child has a genius and every child is born to thrive. So as we kind of come to a close, on today's session, I do want to revisit just the heart of what we've shared, which is that early childhood is truly the most important time to build self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and a strong, positive learner identity, because this is the foundation that supports students for their whole lives. Thrively gives us a way to help children discover what makes them unique in a joyful and low pressure way. And it gives us tools to create strengths based classrooms that center on hope and joy and the whole child. And of course, none of this happens in isolation. Family involvement is key. By sending home simple instructions and offering gentle guidance, we are empowering families to be part of that journey with us. So, as a reminder, we will be sharing the full set of resources, including the K through 2 program guide and all of the updated materials that I mentioned earlier with all of the registered attendees. Before we move on, give Louise a chance to, if there's anything that you would like to say to an educator about using Thrively in the classroom, what would you say to them?
I wish I would have discovered Thrively 13 years ago because it would have given me so much direction as a brand new counselor coming from law enforcement. I mean, the worlds are total opposites. And I remember when I first started in education counseling, I have no idea. I didn't. I
Mm-hmm.
was asking everything and anything. And a lot of things that I saw out there, a lot of SEL program was, this is what we do.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I know what you do, but teach me how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with this great product you have? And that was never the case. And
Absolutely.
Thrively is the first program that one, it teaches me and everyone else, students, teachers, everybody, step by step, how to actually do it. And I see the results. I mean, the proof is out there. I see it in the playground, in the classroom, in the cafeteria, when I interact with students, when they interact with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not my doing. I know that. Great product, Thrively, changes lives. So thank you very much.
Well, I mean, I just thank you much for joining us today. Um, y- you really are just inspirational to to speak with, and I'm so glad that you are able to share your voice with everyone who attended the webinar live and everyone who will see the webinar recorded, because it truly is um, just an honor to get to speak to you about your vision um, and how you interact with your students. It really is inspiring. And I want to thank everybody else who joined us today. If you're interested in learning more about asset based learning or strengths based education, we encourage you to stay connected with Thrively through all of our social media channels, email, or our website. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Facebook, uh, Twitter, our website, and get free resources, research updates, and even implementation strategies to support your strengths based journey. Our next webinar will be on May 27th, discussing Thrively and STEAM. We'll have a special invitation for our school-based educators. I'm going to put the link in the chat there again. Help us connect with your school principal. And if you refer your principal to us, you will be entered for a chance to win a free Thrively pilot account. That is hard to say quickly. A free Thrively pilot account. And just thank you for joining us today for planting the seeds of strength, empowering early learners with Thrively. We hope you found the session insightful and that it challenged your thinking to impact your professional practices. I want to thank you for your time today. And until next time, let's continue to humanize learning together as we create strengths-based, joyful, and hopeful classrooms.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.